So with talking about this though too, there's another issue I'd like to just ask you about, because the courts often tell you that these are your days to see your children. And I think that there's something insanely wrong with that. So for example, we'll say that in the best case scenario, which even this is still not the best case scenario, but the best case scenario where there's a never formed family or a broken family, you have 50-50, you're still missing life when that child is in a sporting event and you go and somebody takes a picture of you at the sporting event to show that you're seeing your child on a day that's not yours. I think that is completely absurd, because the children need both parents. And to surgically, even in the best case, say 50%, 50%, the child still suffers loss 50%. It's not that he has 50, but he's suffering loss 50%. And that's where I've always said, when I talked to you before, I said the idea that maybe like 70-70. What I meant to say is, how do we reduce the gap where the child is separated from one of his or her parents?
Well, we have the statute. We even have it in the state statute. The parents are supposed to support the frequent access to the child. But yet, and I even experienced this, when you attempt to do that and many fathers attempt to do that with a resistant other parent.
Right.
And then what happens is you're criminalized for attempting to have access to the child, or the child have access to the parent. And all of a sudden you're the bad parent. You're the criminalized one, because then the primary importance is, it's the possession time of the parent. Well, okay, if we look at what's the best interest of the child, if the aspects of the child predominate over the aspects of the parent, then why is a parent that's attempting to have frequent access to the child that's consistent with the Texas public policy? Why are they criminalized? And then why is the parent that is resisting this not criminalized? It's the same thing with 2503. For such a long time, until recently, which is a changing trend, you could have parents just withholding a child, from the non-custodial parent. That was never in the past prosecuted. It was always, quote unquote, a civil issue. And finally, in some counties, and I believe in Travis County now there are citations being issued. It's being enforced, and it should have been enforced a long time ago. Because frequent access is important. And so in a married situation, either parent may not have exactly 50-50 due to work schedules, whatever it is.
It's likely that they will not have it.
But the child has access. What about the child's access? What about the child's fundamental rights? We're forgetting about the child oftentimes. We're looking at, it's the parent's possession time. That's secondary. If a parent is focused on that, then the parent needs to be taught and counseled. You're not the primary consideration. The child is the primary consideration. I'm sorry, but just because it's your possession time and you've had the child 5 days and there's a sporting event, and it's important for the child's self-esteem to know that they're valued enough that the other parent is going to go there for them, then I'm sorry, mom or dad, but your feelings are not as important. Your possession time is not as important. You will allow the other parent to go to the sporting time. But we don't see that in the courtroom.
No, and I think that what instead of talking about possession time, maybe we ought to be looking at it more in the terms of family access, of course, but also minimization of separation time. And going back to what you were talking about, the sporting event. Growing up, I participated in a lot of sports. Sometimes my mom would be there, but you always want both parents to be there.
I'll tell you what, one of the fondest memories I have is when I played football, and both parents were always there. And regardless if we won or lost,
your parents
always went to Baskin Robbins and got a chocolate shake.
I hear you.
Looking back, that was very important for me as a child growing up, as a little boy.
But so let me ask you then: should the focus be on minimizing separation time from either parent? I agree with what you said. A child should have access to both parents as needed. But at the same time, this idea that we're going to have, this is my time, this is your time. The child is still experiencing separation 50% of the time in the best case scenario. And I think that we should be looking at saying, okay, is there a way so that it's not your possession time, but you're there for the child knows that you're there? In a sense, that separation time from the child is being minimized.
Yeah, I think that the intervals that the child is without the parent, both parents should be minimized.
Got it.
You know, I mean, there's exceptions, but those exceptions would be frank harm.
Yeah.
You know, overt harm to the child.
Right.
Degradate, such as, you know, absolute physical harm to the child, or there's, you know, overt degrading comments made to a child that emotionally impact a child. But yet, in so many circumstances, you see the aspersions or the insinuations, or just like what Attorney General Paxson, you know, oh, we think this is going on, or this could be going on, but it's not really going on.
Yeah.
So you see, you know, the typical protective orders being used as a weapon to separate a parent from a child by scrupulous attorneys.